Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. Welcome back. Happy Friday. Hopefully your week was absolutely outstanding. We're jamming today. We're talking about Ilhan Omar, the fact that her and her husband went from about $51,000 to about $30 million over the course of a year. Now Congress has questions about that. And Ilhan is not alone. I got a whole bunch of stuff here queued up about the squad. It is horrific. All of them just stealing. Rashida Tlaib might be working with terrorists. We've got many other reports of just how scandalous this is. We have one report of a woman who spent $40,000 over 3 days in a hotel. She's an elected official. So we'll go through all of that, and then we'll hear from Scott Bessent and some others talking about the fraud and what they're doing about reclaiming some of this money and what Congress can do about it. So all of that coming up. The fraud squad is committing a lot of fraud, and we're going to detail all of that here today. Then we'll turn our attention over to the immigration situation, because the lefty lawyers, all these ACLU gangbanging lawyers, remember, many of these lawyers are paid for by our tax dollars. New York and others have legal defense funds that just pay the money out. And then our Congress also initiates funding to all these NGOs and all of these other groups that then pay for illegal alien representation. Well, one interesting thing happened. We have a new rules update, and they are going to be putting the kibosh on the endless appeals. They were just appeal and appeal, delay, 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 stay in the country forever, have a bunch of babies, all citizens. Now that's going to be coming to an end. We have a changing of the rules, and they're flipped out about that. And so coming up on that one. Then we'll close out the day with a summons that apparently is happening. The FBI sent some letters out to election officials all over America, and they are asking them to hop on some phone calls in preparation for the elections. And Mark Warner, a bunch of Democrats, very upset about this, saying that Trump is trying to interfere with the midterms when all we're trying to do is make sure that there is no fraud. And so we've got some SAVE Act updates on that. We've got some Virginia updates. They just gerrymandered their map so badly, it's insane. We got a side-by-side, a compare and contrast on that. And then more reaction from Luna and others as we're counting down to the SAVE Act being passed. And so it's going to be a beautiful day, my friends. Very glad that you're here and with us. Thanks for liking the video and subscribing and all the things. And we got a great sponsor today that we're excited to share. Our friends at the Wellness Company are reminding us about methylene blue. And it's a very popular product, but a lot of the methylene blue out there is the same stuff that you'll find in fish tanks, which is not good. So if you're looking for it, you got to watch out for the low quality bottles that are untested. They got heavy metals made overseas, all sorts of garbage in there. But the Wellness Company, you can trust them and their Recharge product, a doctor formulated supplement that is combining the power of all sorts of things into one product. It's USB grade. It's got NAD plus in there, maximum safety, top tier purity, and all the things. That's formulated with research-backed ingredients to optimize brain function and cellular repair, supporting clean, lasting energy. And so you can tap into your cognitive and metabolic support with our friends at the Wellness Company. So choose a trusted formula made for your body, not for fish tanks, and you can feel the difference. Get some enhanced mental clarity, some sustained energy, sharper focus, and protection against cognitive decline, which none of us want. It's also not going to turn your tongue blue. So go to twc.health/Robert, twc.health/Robert. Use code Robert when you check out, and you'll save 10% off, courtesy of our friends at the Wellness Company. And thanks for supporting our sponsor and, of course, the show. But now, let's get into business on the day, because we have the fraud squad that is out there, and it is a doozy. Lots of money. Ilhan Omar and her husband's $30 million now under congressional investigation. Oversight Committee sending a letter courtesy of the chairman, James Comer, saying, how the heck did you make all of this money, and why aren't the records disclosed so that we can track it and see exactly what you did? And so the letter came out. This is the lovely couple there that is very rich, a lot richer than they were a year ago. $30 million is the total. And they say, we are now demanding answers. And I know we get irritated about all these congressional letters, but this is the pretext for charges later down the line when you discover evidence that you can pass over to Pam Bondi, who hopefully is working through a lot of these referrals. So who is funding this? Who is buying access? Read Chairman Comer's letter. Oh, we will. We're excited about that. But here's what else Comer had to say. He said, I'm demanding financial information from companies linked to Ilhan Omar's husband. I want to know who they are. His companies reportedly went from $51,000. Just think about this in your own business. How do you go from $51K to $30 million in 1 year? No investor information, nothing we can see. So we want to know who is funding this and who is buying access. Oversight sent the letter, not a long one. We'll hit the highlights and then get reaction to this because the Somali fraud and the squad of fraud is out there in full force, getting fat and rich off the American taxpayer teat. So here, from the Oversight Committee, over to Timothy Minette, Rose Lake Capital partner, East Street Crew, president and co-founder, the husband, saying, all right, Mr. Minette, we got questions for you there, buddy. The Committee on Oversight and Government Reform is investigating widespread fraud in Minnesota. We got financial disclosure forms that your wife filed called Ilhan. They show that your companies called East Street Crew LLC and Rose Lake Capital, which you hold ownership stakes in, went from being worth as much as $51,000 in 2023 to as much as $30 million in 2024. And so given that these companies do not publicly list their investors that you are on or explain where the money comes from, we got a big question about this, where this sudden jump in value comes from. Are there unknown individuals who are sending money to you guys to gain influence with your wife? Media reports also suggest that you may have raised money from investors using misleading information, meaning some of those funds may have been obtained improperly. Now, as a result, we're asking for records. We want to comb through all your docs, your East Street Crew LLC, your Rose Lake Capital LLC, and more. Now, Ilhan filed a disclosure report on May 14, 2024, and it lists a stake in your winery worth between $15,000 and $50,000, and your stake in a venture capital firm between $1 and $1,000. That's it. As well as your various retirements account, all totaling about 200 Gs. Now then, her new financial disclosure that was submitted last year on May 14th, 1 year later, it now has a report of between $1 million and $5 million. And a stake in Rose Lake Capital between $5 million and $25 million. Wow, it's good to be a Somali congressman, I'll tell you what. Making both of your assets potentially worth more than $30 million, an increase of more than 140 times in just 1 year, the kleptocracy of America right here. There are serious public concerns about how your business increased so dramatically in value only after a year. In 21, you reportedly promised a DC area restaurant owner a 200% return. What? On a $300,000 investment within 18 months. That's amazing returns. Plus 10% monthly interest if that return was not paid on time. However, you did not return the money until the investor sued you for fraud. The lawsuit says that you fraudulently misrepresented all this. You said that East Street Crew was a legitimate company, and it is not. Saying, media reports also indicate that you were in financial distress, and in fact, you couldn't even pay your winemaker to make wine. And so we have serious concerns about how you made $5 million in a single year. Financial records also show a sharp increase in Rose Lake Capital. And remember Hunty Poo had a bunch of these capital companies, Rosemont, Seneca Advisors, and all that crap. They just make them up, which Representative Omar describes as venture capital management. Very little public info is available. Its website says that they manage $60 billion in assets. According to Rose Lake, it's staffed by 5 former diplomats who have experience in over 80 countries and were involved in 11 free trade agreements, but the website does not name specific employees or advisors. No asset portfolio information at all. An earlier version of the website also stated that the company focuses our work and investments on socially responsible investing with the UN help. Also, you've been identified as a co-founder and partner and more, but they then removed everybody off the website. It lists former U.S. ambassadors. It lists former members of Congress as advisors, but now they're all gone. That information now removed. So we've got questions there. Ilhan, husband, to assist the committee in our oversight, We want answers to these questions no later than February 19th, just a few weeks from now. All communications and documents, including but not limited to any audited financial statements from 2020 to now for both companies. We also want all filings, all documents, and communications with the SEC, as well as any of these other forms. If you're a finance bro, you know what these forms mean. All filings and documents between your company, the SEC, other regulatory bodies, and anything related to travel by Rose Lake. Ooh, if you went to the UAE, if you traveled to Somalia, if you went to Kenya, or you went to go solicit businesses connected, money connected to businesses in those countries, we want to know about it. Why? Because the Oversight Committee has broad authority to investigate you, and investigate you we shall. Any matter, anytime under House Rule 10. So if you'd like to communicate with us about these records, why don't you just come and call our office at that phone number? Sincerely, your friend, James Comer. Now, this is fun because Comer is a colleague to Ilhan Omar, right? She's, of course, a congresswoman. She's in Congress. And so he didn't send a letter to her, but he sent a letter to her husband. And then he walks down the hall by her and says, "Oh, hey, Ilhan, how are you?" And just continues on because the investigation will continue. So we see that there's reaction to this, and she's not alone. It's not just Ilhan, okay? There's a bunch of others who are all caught up in these scandals. And there's this new report from Fox talking about this other squad member called Ayanna Pressley, who apparently is also getting fat off the government teat. Not a big surprise. The fraud squad now continues.
How did you make all this income from the rental property?
Sir, I submit a financial disclosure, just like everybody else. There's nothing to see here. Thank you.
Is it appropriate for members to make so much money when they're in office? Should there be rules there? Financial disclosure reports show that the wealth of Pressley and her husband Conan Harris swelled from $12,000 in 2019 to as much as $8 million.
Wow.
5 rental properties earn them up to $350,000 annually. Pressley once advocated to suspend rent during the pandemic. She pushed policies for struggling homeowners.
These little to no cost bills help people remain housed.
Presley's husband is an ex-con who went from serving a decade in jail before they were married for drug trafficking to raking in up to $1 million a year as a business and management consultant.
Oh, it's so incredible, isn't it? Like a felon who went to prison. Now they're worth $8 million because of our Congress.
Times where we can see that the spouse is the person who may be bringing in the most income.
Some lawmakers resist restrictions on outside earnings. Do you think that there should be changes, some different rules about what members can make while they're in office?
These are presumably right-wing reports designed to try to undermine our members.
They are not right-wing reports. They're in their financial disclosure statements. How do you explain that? Are they just geniuses? They just know how to turn $100,000 into $30 million? How does that work? Exactly. Did they start an AI company? Did they launch or go public with an IPO somewhere? I don't think so.
And there's nothing credible that has been suggested that I have seen.
But other members worry about their colleagues cashing in on congressional service.
The idea that people's net worth balloons at that level is yet another erosion of public trust.
There was one of the first aphorisms I learned is politics is the art of turning influence into affluence.
Now, the
Nice
money
line.
also followed Presley's fellow squad member Ilhan Omar to Congress. A House committee is probing how assets belonging to Omar's husband grew into the millions. Brett?
Chet Burkham, live on Capitol Hill.
We know how it ballooned into the millions. Fraud, because that's what they do. And it just continues on. We got a bunch of it queued up here. Fox News also reporting there's a national security alarm as it relates to Rashida Tlaib, another squad member. So they're just like peas in a pod. There was a watchdog group that released a scathing report about all of this, and apparently she's connected to terrorist organizations. Wow. So they can just send some more letters, I think, for the rest of these people as well, because the floodgates apparently are wide open and they're getting fat and rich off of it. So Fox said, scathing report, calls it a potential national security risk, and senators are out there saying that they want investigations on this, explaining a comprehensive new briefing document from a nonpartisan group sounding the alarm on Rashida. The conduct of Rashida, including her rhetoric and affiliations and more, raises serious concerns about the institutional integrity of her as a congresswoman. The briefing goes through some of her financial history, says her campaign apparatus poured large sums of cash into anti-Israel activists. Of course, they're all very anti-Israel. and also sent money to a consulting firm called Rasha Mubarak. Mubarak is connected with CARE. CARE is connected to an unindicted co-conspirator, which is connected to terrorists. So according to the briefing, she has shared the stage with a variety of these people, and they're now saying that maybe she's connected to these terrorist groups. She's been censured and more, and Congress people are now pounding the table about this. But here's more of the report on the details on Rashida's nefariousness.
Watchdog Group is now sounding the alarm on what it calls serious ethical and national security concerns related to Democratic Representative Rashida Tlaib. In a new report, the group alleging that she has ties to terrorist organizations. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris, joins us after looking into this report tonight, which focused on everything from campaign contributions to public speeches. Break down everything you know.
So the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy releasing this new report titled Rashida Tlaib's Problematic Rhetoric and Associations. The 19-page document detailing what it calls our serious ethical and also those national security concerns. Those concerns are related to Tlaib's alleged affiliations with terrorist groups and documented engagements with organizations linked to both Hamas and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, both foreign terrorist organizations. The report also suggesting that Tlaib's rhetoric raises some concerns about potential risks to both the ethical and institutional integrity of the United States.
We are just getting started. I want to say to all of them, every genocide enabler, look at this room's we ain't going anywhere.
Now, the report also detailing Tlaib's campaign contributions, paying over $550,000 to a consulting firm called Unbought Power, whose head has faced some scrutiny for having links to organizations with ties to Hamas and the Council for American Islamic Relations. The briefing does call for Congress to look into Tlaib's conduct, specifically her public statements that allegedly align with terrorist groups, and a review of her campaign fundraising sources. We did reach out to her office tonight, but have not yet heard back.
Of course not. So they support sending money to the Somalians over there. They support funding the anti-ICE organizations. And apparently she's also facilitating interchanges with FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations as well. So we continue on. Dan Crenshaw says, if this is true with Rashida, we should immediately vote to remove her from Congress. This is not political. This is not partisan. This is a matter of national security. So in the House, we see some efforts to hold these people accountable. And in the Senate, John Cornyn said the same. This report is deeply concerning. A full investigation is urgently required. So add her to the list along with Ayanna, $8 million woman, and Ilhan, the $30 million woman. Rashida also on the list. Now, she's not alone because in Georgia, the Prince George's County executive, maybe not Georgia, in Maryland, this official, this woman, blew $43,000 on a 3-night hotel stay. Wow. Total cost was over $43,000 for 3 nights on the public dime. She's under fire for putting herself and 24 staffers in a hotel during the ice storm. What do you think that they were doing in those hotel rooms together? Oh, gosh.
As the snow and sleet piled up last week, Prince George's County Executive Aisha Braveboy, her top staffers, along with several county council members, 25 in all, were holed up here at the hotel at the University of Maryland at taxpayer expense.
Of course.
In an exclusive interview Monday, Braveboy explained she wanted her team in one place.
Because there were a lot of decisions that had to be made in real time.
With the main county...
Have you ever heard of Zoom before or a phone call?
Building closed after a small electrical fire and other facilities fully staffed, she chose to seek a hotel.
I can tell you that we were able to coordinate over 137 emergency medical trips. There was an incident where we had seniors who lost power in a building. We found out, and in real time, we were able to move and transport those seniors within less than an hour.
But the stay here is being criticized by some community activists in part because of this video Braveboy and her team released, urging people to stay home. Critics on social
they're doing the COVID dances. Man, they must have been having a good time out there. You can see there was a lot of team bonding there. That's what happens when you go and you drop 50 G's on a little weekend excursion.
Social media have called that video tone deaf as citizens were stuck at home dealing with a serious storm.
Were you all partying at the hotel?
No, no. In fact, you have my schedule. You'll see it. We were up at 7:30 in the morning.
According to hotel invoices released to 7 News at our request, the total cost was just over $43,000 for 3 nights, including 25 hotel rooms at $149 each,
Crazy.
A conference room at $300 per day, and an $18,000 audio-video setup.
The whole storm response is going to be in excess of $16 million. So you're talking about a fraction of those costs. And the majority of those costs were actually AV and other equipment that we set up to see in real time the conditions of the roads.
All partying at the hotel?
No, no.
Total cost was just over
$44,000. And of course, they needed to do it because they needed to coordinate rapid response during the cold weather. All right, so $45,000 over there. And it's not just the squad. It just continues on. Newly discovered in California, $8.6 billion uncovered in Cali. More massive fraud. Only one day after Attorney General Rob Bonta dismissed the baseless claims of widespread fraud. Everything's baseless, except it's not. Turns out there's base. The SBA uncovered $8.6 billion in dodgy COVID-era loans as well. We're getting ripped off everywhere we look. Kelly Loeffler, who got her Senate seat stolen from her in Georgia after Fani Willis and Brian Kemp rigged the election there, announced Friday that the agency has suspended more than 111,000 California borrowers suspected of committing fraud. One San Diego address had 14 businesses that were registered there. And how much money did they get? All the Leering centers in Cali, $2 million in additional loans. So they are accused of collecting money under the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, got their hands on a lot of it, and got fat and rich. Loeffler explained to the Post, she said, once again, the Trump SBA is taking decisive action to deliver accountability in a state whose unaccountable welfare policies have created a culture of fraud and abuse at the expense of law-abiding taxpayers and small business owners. And boxes being taken out. The staggering number represents the most significant crackdown on the fraudulent pandemic program. As we did in Minnesota, we're actively working with federal law enforcement to identify the criminals who stole from us. You know what we could do with $8 billion? A lot. We don't need any more Leering centers out there. The SBA announcement comes after a crackdown. There was also more in Minnesota. They suspended another 6,900 borrowers with 7,900 potentially fraudulent loans, $400 million. It's like, why are we even paying taxes, to be honest with you? It all just gets stolen by somebody. Loeffler recently notified Tim Walz that the SBA is also going to freeze another $5.5 million pending further review. She sent a letter over there. She wrote that the action follows alarming findings. We have now indicted people to the tune of $1 billion. They've also got $3 million here, another 13,000 additional loans totaling $430 million as fraudulent. There's Loeffler. Dozens of investigations are underway. We're just scratching the surface on this. $8 billion in California, that's like lunch money. That's tip money for their fraud. But this woman was amazing. She was out testifying in front of the Senate, U.S. Senate, shout out. Her name is Kristen Robbins. She's running for governor out there of Minnesota. We should support her. She's a state rep, and she was brave enough to come in here and explain exactly what's going on in Minnesota. And she explains the following, the Honorable Christine Robbins in Minnesota.
In March of 2020, Representative Ilhan Omar authored a bill called the Meals Act, which eventually was incorporated into a larger COVID package. This law enabled states to waive the normal eligibility requirements for participating in the National School Lunch Program, eliminating income requirements, site inspections, and expanded distribution methods. Minnesota took full advantage of these waivers and enabled site sponsors like Feeding Our Future, Partners in Quality Care, and Gargar Family Services to bill for hundreds of millions of fake meals for fake children. Just one of these groups, Feeding Our Future, became the largest COVID fraud in state and national history, bilking taxpayers of at least $250 million. To date, there have been 78 indictments and 61 convictions in the Feeding Our Future scandal, with more cases to go on trial this spring. The Feeding Our Future prosecutions then revealed that as many as half of those defendants were also getting state money in other Medicaid-funded programs.
What a joke.
Yet despite reports on this back in 2023, more than 3 years ago, Tim Walz and his agencies didn't stop those defendants from getting additional state money in other Medicaid programs.
Because they were in on it.
We now have found fraud in multiple Medicaid programs, including autism centers, sober homes, non-emergency medical transportation, integrated community supports, and housing stabilization services.
I think that's everything. Did she just list everything that exists? There's fraud in everything? Yeah.
In December, our committee held a hearing on credible allegations of fraud in 2 new areas: adult day services and assisted living facilities. We now have seen allegations of fraud in 14 Medicaid programs. The former first U.S. attorney who led these prosecutions for years stated that the estimated fraud is $9 billion. And this doesn't count fraud in SNAP or childcare programs.
It's like so much money. Think about how hard you have to work to make $1 million, and they just steal it right out from under us. Money that should go back to our people who are not fraudsters. But we also saw this woman is getting ready for a trial starting in April. The first Haitian elected to Congress as a Democrat. She stole $5 million and has been arraigned. Accused of conspiring to steal federal funds, she took the money and then reinvested it right back into her congressional campaign and won.
Arraignment day for Florida Congresswoman Sheila Sherfulis McCormick. The Democrat is accused of conspiring to steal $5 million in federal disaster funds during the COVID pandemic and funneling some of it into her 2022 congressional campaign. The Congresswoman's attorney already notifying the court she is waiving her appearance and is pleading not guilty. She is facing a total of 15 charges. Her trial is set for April. Those are your headlines, guys. Arraignment day.
Lots of fraud in the fraud squad. And you probably, as we've gone through this today, noticed a pattern, right? Kind of like, very similar kind of situation here. And of course, the commonality is they're all Democrats. So here is another person testifying, or his name is Scott Bessent. And he was in front of Congress yesterday, and he was asked about the status of this. Are you guys cutting off the money? Are you turning off the spigot and closing the floodgates? Here's this exchange with Jim Banks.
Secretary Bessent, thank you for your leadership and your service to our country. You've talked many times about the ongoing burdens and effects of illegal immigration on our country as a result of the open border policies of the Biden administration. Last year, you said, quote, "If you're here illegally, there's no place for you in our financial system."
Makes sense.
And you also announced that the Treasury Department would propose regulations to cut off federal benefits and tax credits to illegal aliens. And I wondered if you could give us a status update on those rules. How can we protect hardworking Americans from illegals who exploit our U.S. financial and credit system, and what are we doing about it?
Yes, sir. So we have moved forward on that. We have, through the regulators, had them double down on the KYC, know your client, and to make sure that everyone within the regulated banking system is legal. The other thing we have found out,
cut the money up,
and we saw it in Minneapolis as the hotbed of waste, fraud, and abuse, is outside of the banking system in money service businesses that a lot of money being wired out of the country, we don't know where. So this is a vulnerability we spotted in our system, and we are cracking down on that. We've also cracked down at the southern border because we've found that lots of cartels are using or money laundering there. And we've done that in a targeted basis rather than increasing costs to all banks.
Is it your sense that it's working?
Yes, sir.
And what else can we do?
Look, we are considering a re-underwriting of the clients. And again, many people are familiar with what is called a suspicious activity report, a SAR, we find that many of those come in after the horses left the barn. So we are encouraging banks to be more proactive, know your client, and re-underwrite.
Can you give us maybe an education a little bit about why all this matters? How does it affect my dad, retired factory worker in Fort Wayne, Indiana?
Yeah.
The cost of illegal immigrants in our financial system and the credit system. Just give us a lesson on why it matters.
Well, again, it creates instability, and it also creates. We've seen. I cited it earlier today. We've seen there's a Wharton study that shows that it increases rents for working Americans. It takes jobs. So we could think that if we look at household resilience for working Americans, they got clobbered because law of supply and demand applies that for low-wage earners, as you increase the workforce by 10, 15, 20 million in a very compressed period, then you're going to see the wage decreases.
Secretary, I wish that my parents would have had access to Trump accounts when I was born and set something like that up for me and my brothers. I mean, what a game changer that can be to help babies today, young kids today achieve the American dream.
We're definitely
who grow
doing
up on
that.
the other side of the tracks and have something, have an option like a Trump account. I praise you and President Trump and this administration for what you've done to work with Congress to create Trump accounts. One gentleman, Brad Gerstner, who is a native Hoosier, like me, he grew up a very humble background and made it big, and now he's given back and funding Trump accounts for Hoosier kids who are born today. And I know it's going to make a big difference for the next generation of kids. One thing I worry about, though, are politicians down the road who want to regulate those accounts, or they want to put restrictions or rules that prevent those accounts from growing. What can we do to protect this great vision today to make sure that politicians later don't ruin it?
Well,
Don't let illegals
I
get
think
them.
it's two things. Mission creep, that we are committed to the lowest cost index funds, that it does not become something for social engineering, that it is return-based, low-cost, broadly diversified, so that everyone owns a share of the U.S. economy. And, Senator, I think the more that people become invested in these, the smaller the chance for meddling is, because I think they will be adamant.
Yeah, and you are helping people to establish a stake in the system. How can you be a capitalist or like America if you have no capital, you have no assets, you have no resources, because you're paying your taxes to Somalians and to congresswomen who are Democrats who are ripping us off? It's really hard to get super in love with the system when you're being stolen from. So Ted Cruz said, you know, the Minnesota fraudsters like Ilhan and her acolytes, Tim Walz, Keith Ellison, and Jacob Frey, we invited them to come and testify, but they didn't want to do that. How come? Because they don't want to be questioned about their crimes.
And the hearing today detailed how the elected Democrats in Minnesota, they knew about the fraud, that they were screaming red lights and warning signs everywhere. Look, these are daycare centers that had no kids, that had no play toys, that had no playground equipment, that the windows are all blacked out, that were dark and empty, and yet the Democrats were sending millions and millions of dollars to these fraudulent centers. And the reason the Democrats were doing that is because they benefited politically. They benefited from votes from the Somali community, and they benefited from campaign money from the Somali community. It was corrupt. And I'll tell you, Rob, I invited the governor, Tim Walz, to come testify before the hearing. I invited the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, to testify. I invited Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey to come testify. They all said no. They're all running and hiding because they were complicit in a grotesque abuse of public trust.
Yeah, why would they come testify? They can just sit back there and continue to commit their frauds. Now, a lot of the money is being cut off, but of course, a big question is, where was that money going? Those billions of dollars. We had questions about whether the money was being put in suitcases and sent back over to Somalia. We definitely know that happened. But here, $30 million, and we have Assets under management of $60 billion, Rose Lake Capital, $60 billion. Where did that money come from? That's a lot, and we need answers. So now Ilhan's hubby can respond to this letter. If he does not respond to this letter, hopefully James Comer sends him another follow-up letter. This is just a simple request at the moment, but we know how this pattern unfolds. Send a request. If they don't send a request, usually send another 2 or 3 requests. Then comes a subpoena. Then if they ignore the subpoena, then we move forward for contempt, send that over to Pam Bondi. And remember that we were dealing a lot of this stuff with Hunter Biden. And it felt very, very frustrating until it wasn't, right? Hunter then ultimately was found guilty. Joe Biden was thrown out of the campaign, and we're starting to see some of the truth emerge. So we appreciate the efforts from Comer and some of the Republicans. Oftentimes it feels like they're just screaming into the wind, but this has now been sent over to Timothy Minette. We'll see if he takes it seriously and responds at all, or if he continues to ignore and stonewall, and Congress can then escalate. All right, now let's turn our attention. We're continuing on here. We've got some other big news on the day, and they're really freaked out about this, which is very enjoyable. Democrats and Lib lawyers are melting down. Here's one example. His name is Aaron Reichlin Melnick, and he's one of the most obnoxious ACLU-ish gangbang loving lawyers on X. We follow him and share this report just because it's so enjoyable. He's so upset about this policy change that we're going to walk through right here. You can see this is coming out of the Department of Justice because the DOJ runs immigration under the Executive Office for Immigration Review, and they're melting down because the Board of Immigration Appeals process is now changing dramatically. And we're talking about mandating dismissal of the endless illegal alien appeals. They just keep going and going. And they file multiple versions of their claims. And they say, oh, no, it's my pupusa business. And oh, Guatemala, claims against torture. We saw with Kilmar, you can't deport him anywhere because every time you say, we're going to send you to Eswatini. He says, well, Eswatini, I'm going to be tortured there. Kind of restarts the whole thing, and around we go. They stay forever. Not anymore. Aaron, the gangbang loving lawyer out there, in my opinion, he says, holy crap, the Trump administration just took a sledgehammer to due process. Due process is a sliding scale related to the process to which you are due. It's not the same across the board. Illegal aliens don't get citizen due process. They don't get access to the Article 3 courts in the same manner and fashion that we do. They go through the Executive Office of Immigration Review. Always been that way. It's not shattering due process when the agency is following the process to change the rules. It's literally allowed. That's why we have these agencies. So he is so upset about it. He says they're going to shift this process. They're going to eliminate the Board of Immigration Appeals process and mandate the dismissal of all appeals. They also increase the fees of those appeals to $1,000, thanks to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which said if you want to just appeal, you got to cough up some money. And that's tremendous news because we want to put speed bumps, roadblocks in their attempts to use our system against us. And if they got to pay money, or the ACLU lawyers or Mom Donnie wants to fund this whole thing, then it can come out of their pockets, not ours. So it was filed, and now they're unhappy about it. We're going to take a look at the official document in a second. But they're also changing the rules so that rather than 30 days to file a notice of appeal, you got 10 days. File it or lose it. File it on day 11 or 12, you're gone. That's 10 days to find $1,000 and a lawyer for an appeal. The government says it's probably going to deny anyways. Amazing. He says the goal is clear. Mass deportations over due process. Hello, they're getting process. This is the process that they're due, according to the new administration that was duly elected by the American people. Now, he says an order of removal does not become final until the Board of Immigration Appeals denies an appeal. So you lose, you appeal, then they deny it, then it becomes final. Now, after that, ICE can deport anyone unless they file another appeal to the federal circuit and get an emergency stay. And they're doing this, by the way, very aggressively. They've got a ton of money, a ton of lawyers who are driving DOJ lawyers insane, even breaking down in the middle of the courtroom, that woman who has been relieved. said that she would like to be held in contempt just so she could get some sleep. So then they would have to exit. They've done this many times. They go petition an Article 3 court. Those are our courts, not the illegal alien courts. File a petition for a writ of habeas corpus. Some blue judge somewhere says, yeah, let him go. Actually, why don't you put him on an airplane, fly him back to Minnesota, and we'll give him his wings on there to his illegal alien father who broke into our country. Now, the appeal also costs $600 to file in federal court. So now anyone who loses in immigration has to pay $1,000 automatically, probably going to get denied anyways. Then they have to go back over to the Article 3 courts, drop $600 over there to get an emergency stay, file a petition there to stop them from getting imminently deported. Like, this is great. And this applies even to people in detention. You can see how mad he is because it's in all caps now. It's like just more enjoyable. The more mad he gets, the better it is. So more to come. The rule makes a number of other changes to the Board of Immigration. We'll take a look at the official document and then see some reaction to this. Douglas Mackey, shout out. Yeah, and it's beautiful. Thanks for the great report. That's how I feel. We appreciate it. Thank you, Aaron. It's nice to see it through your lens and watch you melting down in front of all of us. So boom, here it is. Appellate procedures for all of the endless appeals. We've gone through many appeals here in all these illegal cases. Here's the summary. This new rule amends the DOJ regulations to streamline the appellate review by the Board of Immigration Appeals by making review of these decisions on the merits discretionary. It's not automatic anymore. By setting appropriate time, because they file frivolous appeals. They're all, everybody who's here on, either illegally or on temporary status or as a refugee or as an asylee, they're all under attack. They're all going to get murdered by somebody somewhere. We get it. And they're usually just made up claims. Like in Kilmar's case, it was literally, you think about asylee status or refugee status, that should be a very, very high bar. Okay. It's like you're an ally and your government is going to kill you. It's like, all right, maybe we'll consider, helping you out for a little bit because your government is going to kill you. There's nothing you can do. But many of these other claims are not about government oppression. They're about gang activity. Oh, we got gangs here. So all countries have gangs and crime. That doesn't give you a basis to come in here and exploit our immigration system. That's ridiculous. But they say that. Kilmar himself said his mom's pupusa business was under attack by a barrio gang. And so now that's our problem. Now we got to take care of him and every other similarly situated illegal alien. So by setting appropriate times, by streamlining other aspects, we can avoid adding to the sizable backlog at the board. It's not about, it's about the practicalities. Like, they have to run this agency. Joe Biden brought in 20 million illegals, and many sanctuary states are paying for them to have lawyers and to file these claims. So the government has to respond to the problem. If the house is on fire, you put it out, and that's what they're doing. They're changing things to make sure we can move on it. Now, additionally, the department is also making various technical and non-substantive changes as well. Here's a little bit more on addresses. If you want to participate, make your voice heard on these changes, you can do that. We have legal authority to do this. All of it is perfectly legal under all of these statutes, the Immigration and Nationality Act, and more. U.S. Code. We're allowed to change and make the rules. In 1940, they passed this act, and it's been developing a lot over the years. And the AG can issue regulations to run the Article 2 courts, their immigration courts. Now, in line with these principles, that's exactly what we're doing. We are issuing this to amend our summary dismissal procedures to better address the lengthy appeal backlogs at the board. And we're going to delete them. Now, over time, we've adopted measures. We've changed a bunch of things over many years to enhance our efficiency. In 2002, there was a rule. There were changes back then that did help. And we had reforms in the 2000s. And among other changes, we put, simultaneous briefing schedules. Then in 2020, there was a final rule. Then in 23, another change. Then another change in 24. So this is common. And that's what we're doing here. Now, we've already described this. There are various appeals that are taking place. We've got a major backlog that is accruing, and we can't keep up with them. And since a rapidly growing backlog, The only regulatory measure that was taken was to increase the case completions was very minimal. And then between these other years, and so anyway, long story, given the unprecedented board caseload and the insufficiency of the currently available tools, the department has reconsidered the board's role. The board cannot and does not need to adjudicate every case on the merits with the tools at its disposal. We don't have to hear your papusa claim, because if your papusa claim comes in and it doesn't meet the statutory requirement, we don't have to entertain it and spend all this time and resources on it. It's already been adjudicated, just like the Supreme Court. We're going to petition up there, rejected. Petition denied, you lose. We don't have to hear every single case. The board cannot and does not need to adjudicate everything. And so, rather than require these adjudications, now the DOJ is changing its regs to provide the board with more flexibility when reviewing appeals. Instead, for appeals taken from decisions issued after this becomes active, as explained, the default will be summary dismissal. Oh, that's it. Great. Unless a majority of the board vote to consider the appeal. Got to vote to hear the appeal. Otherwise, it's just gone. These dismissals will also occur quickly within 15 days of the appeal, allowing aliens to go to federal court if they want, and they can deal with it over there. But we're not going to sit here and wait years for an appellate court in the immigration system to issue a decision. This change in procedure will allow the board to focus its resources on adjudicating more than 200,000 pending appeals. 200,000 illegal aliens come in and clog up our system. Takes years to process any of this, and they just sit around having babies, stealing money. The IFR will also change the deadline, goes down from 30 days to 10 days, except for certain asylum applications and more. These changes will streamline this appellate review and allow the board to address the backlog. And so it goes on, it continues, but you get the point and you understand exactly why this guy is so upset about this, because it's going to cost a bunch of money. It's now discretionary. You don't get to clog the system up, break into the country, or overstay a visa, or make a lie about why you're under attack coming over here from Cameroon or wherever. Many other countries can handle your immigration problems. We don't need to be the world's dumping ground for all of this. And so here's more from Kristi Noem. She's saying, by the way, we also have a bunch of criminal illegal aliens who are going to be released back into custody courtesy of Gavin Newsom. She says, I urgently call on Gavi to agree to not release back into the public 33,000 criminal illegal aliens that are already in California custody. 33,000. And explains what that is made up of. 399 homicides, 3,300 assaults, 3,100 burglaries, 1,000 robberies, 8,300 dangerous drug offenses, almost 2,000 weapons offenses, and 1,300 bad crimes from Homeland Security. But California, as we know, is not in the business of cooperating with ICE because it's a sanctuary one-party state. And if you think it's just the Democrats who are bad on this issue, listen to this Republican governor from Ohio. When he went on CNN and he was asked about the deportation of the Haitians, here's what he had to say. A Republican.
Big consensus for that. I think where, we start losing people is when we're looking at people who are working hard every day. The Haitians in Springfield are one example of that. Under temporary protected status, they're here legally, and they're working.
Legally with an asterisk. Okay, Joe Biden allowed the laws to be exploited. Everyone's an asylee. Everyone's a refugee. Everyone's on TPS status. They just kept extending it and extending it and extending it. The Haitians had their earthquake 15 years ago. They can go home. So here's more.
And what the employers have told me time and time again is we hired Haitians year, 2, 3 years ago, frankly, because we couldn't fill these jobs. And Springfield is actually, put my gun.
Such a joke. You couldn't fill the jobs with undercutting American pay, essentially. You wanted cheap labor. This is the same thing that we see all the time. Democrats want cheap votes. Republicans want cheap labor. They're both selling out American citizens on both sides of the aisle, and we're sick of it.
Governor's hat on now from the point of view of economic development, Springfield has been moving forward. Springfield is coming back. Part of the reason they've been able to come back is because of these Haitians who are there. They're not only working, but of course they're spending money in the community. There's been businesses started, restaurants have started. And if we lose all of those, if they lose temporary protected status, then they no longer can work and the companies can't employ them.
Then they can hire Americans. What's so complicated about that, Mike?
Blow to the economy. That's a blow to the state. I mean, if you look at Ohio's growth, just one more statistic. If you look at Ohio's growth in the last few years, over half that growth has come from immigrants who are here and they're working and they're helping the economy grow and helping us.
Yeah, amazing.
And these are arguments.
Yeah, so how's the economy doing out there? It's all thanks to the Haitians. Americans can't do any jobs. And if you want to hire somebody a real livable wage, that's expensive. Why not just bring in some foreigners who will work for a third of the price, and then you can just, ratchet up your numbers. Yeah, look at all this economic activity. Look at all these job hirings. Look at all these companies that are moving here to exploit our sanctuary policies to take advantage of these foreigners who are coming into work. We're doing a great job. It's not good for American citizens. That's why we have a problem with it, but they don't care. As long as the numbers go up, they're happy about it. Numbers of votes for Democrats, numbers of cheap labor for the Republicans, and we're all getting scammed. So here was earlier this week, this gentleman was testifying about what he discovered at the Quality Leering Center, where all of the Somalis were creating their businesses and bringing economic activity to their community. Here's what this is really about.
My name is David Hoke. I was born in Minneapolis. I'm a lifelong resident of the Twin Cities area. And although it's not in my testimony, I take exception to Mr. Weissman's questioning of my data as being inaccurate. I'll get back to that. My journey into uncovering fraud in Minnesota and ultimately throughout the entire United States, as it turns out, began when I started to notice very unusual changes in the Minneapolis area. Remember, I grew up there, so I know Minneapolis very well.
What happened?
Most notably, the enormous number of childcare facilities that had opened up. I would drive around the Twin Cities, and it seemed these childcare facilities were literally on every block. Some blocks had 2 or 3 childcare facilities on the same block. Minnesota sees a fair amount of snow in the winter, and I began to notice, driving by these childcare facilities, there were never any footprints in the snow outside these childcare facilities. And I'd go by them 3, 4, 5 times a day, Monday through Friday, because my office is in the heart of where a lot of these childcare facilities are. So I said, well, what's going on here with all these childcare facilities? So I began to check the Minnesota Secretary of State's website to find out just who owned all these childcare facilities. And guess what? Every single one of them was Somali-owned. Not every child care facility in Minnesota was, but the ones that I was looking at that were by my office, and there were a lot of them. What's even stranger is that every one of these facilities is located in a commercial or industrial building, no play areas, bad neighborhoods, and several of the child care facilities had signage which stated they were open either 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., Quality Leering Center, for example, or open 24 hours. Who the heck brings their kid to stay overnight at a child care facility in a rough neighborhood? None of it made any sense.
No one.
The Leering misspelling was the final straw for me. That's the spark that ignited my full-on investigation. So Minnesota has 2 different child care licenses available. One covers 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and the other one covers 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. They're 2 very different licenses. So for a child care facility to be open 24 hours a day or even from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., they need both licenses. How many of these facilities that are open these extended hours have 2 licenses? None of them. 0. They all have only 1 license. Minnesota child care supervision requirements include the following. For infant care, that's 0 to 17 months of age, you have to have 1 adult supervising for every 4 children, and max 8 in a group. For toddlers, which is 18 and 23 months of age, it requires 1 adult for every 5 children to supervise, max 10 children in that group. For 2-year-olds, you need 1 adult for every 7 children, so max 14 in a group. So if a child care facility was billing the state of Minnesota for 99 children, i.e. Quality Leering Center, that child care facility would need to have at least 8 employees supervising those children. These cannot be 1099 employees. They have to be W-2 employees. That means we're going to have at least 8 W-2s, and we're going to have at least 8 I-9s. So if the feds went in and checked that, what do you think they're going to find? You already know the answer. One issue that is often brought up is that we are unfairly targeting the Somali community. This is a fair point to be made. As one Somali gentleman exclaimed in our second video, we're not the only community that does fraud. Fraud certainly exists in every community. It was the sheer volume and the blatant nature of the Somali fraud that demanded my attention. When one facility, Mako Childcare, has another childcare, mini childcare, registered at the same address, but the sign still says Make Childcare, it kind of stands out. And again, no children, no footprints in the snow, ever.
Fake.
This is what I mean by being blatant. Misspelled signage, posted hours that require 2 licenses, no child footprints in the snow, not even once. So how did we arrive at this point? Why are we having this hearing? We got here because of politicians, almost exclusively Democrats. A couple of names come to mind. Jody Harpstead, the former commissioner of the Department of Human Services, and Shireen Gandhi, the current commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Human Services. Harpstead put the whole fraud on steroids. She was steering the ship from 2019 to 2025 during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is when the whole fraud network exploded into what we see nationally today and to what we see in my numbers, which are accurate. So now we hear that the Minnesota Department of Human Services is forging documents and backdating paperwork, all in an effort to cover up their complicity in this fraud.
Fraud. Jail.
This is just more criminal behavior from the gang at the Minnesota Department of Human Services. It's criminal behavior. Minneapolis was the incubator for this nationwide fraud, which we're now seeing in Maine. We're seeing it in Washington State. We're seeing it in Columbus, Ohio. It was constructed here in Minneapolis. And the idea behind it was if you can get a population in here and fit them into this fraud framework, you have a guaranteed voting block for all eternity.
And you can't unwind it.
The fraud was started, and then it expanded out, and now you see it all around the country.
Can't stop it.
So why is fraud bad? Why is it a bad thing? Why does anybody care? Fraud is bad because it steals from the blind, it steals from kids with cancer, it steals from disabled, it steals from the homeless, it steals from wounded veterans, it steals from everybody in this room.
Yep, everybody.
So what is the answer? How do we fix this?
Deport and jail.
The way we fix this is that the federal government has to go to the Minnesota Department of Human Services and every social service agency and say, look, if you issue a payment using federal money and it goes to a fraudulent company, you run the risk of us coming in, arresting you, handcuffing you, parading you out, bringing you in front of a judge, and putting you in prison.
Yes.
So if you're going to issue a payment, you better make sure that it's a legitimate company. Otherwise, don't issue the payment. Go on Google Earth. Look at, it's a liquor store. It's a grocery store. Why are you issuing payment to a child care or a transportation company that doesn't even exist? Why are you issuing a payment? It's criminal behavior. The federal government has to use that cudgel over these people and say, look, you better be sure if you issue that payment that it's legitimate payment or you could end up in prison. Thank you.
Man, that guy needs to run for Congress or be a U.S. attorney or something. That was amazing. But while this is all happening, we have other representatives like this woman called Maria Salazar. She says, we love the illegals. She's just like DeWine. Again, more Republicans who don't understand the time that we're in right now.
But don't touch the nannies or the gardeners or the ones who are picking up the jalapeno peppers or the oranges or the berries or the ones in the dairy houses. Come on. Those people are helping us eat better, cheaper homes, cheaper vegetables, and better fruits. So those are the ones that we are trying to give a dignified status. But don't.
All right, so dignified status. They didn't dignify our laws at all. They broke into the country. They made up some stupid claim to exploit TPS or refugee status. We want to be good people. If, there's a genocide or a murder or something going on and we want opportunities to say, well, we can, take some people in so that a whole population isn't decimated or something. Not because you got carjacked in Mexico City. Okay, that's not our problem. That's your problem. You don't use that as an excuse to come in here. And this idea, I get so sick of it, that these people will work for cheaper. They're going to pick the food because Americans won't do that. We're going to get cheaper housing or something, which we're not, by the way, because we have an extra 20 million people who need to live somewhere. Supply and demand. And actually, housing has gone down a little bit because of the limitation on the invasion, which has been good. But this isn't really any different than the Democrat Party back during the Civil War when they said, well, if we free the slaves, who's going to go work the fields? Who's going to go pick the cotton? She says, here, pick the vegetables, but it's not any different. It's exploiting a class of people and then using that exploitation to make a policy argument and then turn around and say that you're a humanitarian. It's disgusting. And she's a representative screaming about that. And we're not playing that game anymore. So shame on her. She knows what she's doing, trying to make an argument to your humanity. And at the same time, really exploiting the people that she presumes to care about, which is sick. So here's Eric Schmidt. He was also out. He says, you know, we need to step up our enforcement here. And people like Maria, people like DeWine, they're actually making economic arguments for these things. They forget all about the culture. They forget all about the national integrity or American culture or American citizens who can do the jobs that the Haitians are doing or that the vegetable pickers are doing or whatever. And Eric Schmidt is now explaining exactly what this is. It is, in fact, suicidal empathy. Here's what he had to say.
Mr. President.
Senator from Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's a phrase that gets tossed around a lot these days, suicidal empathy.
Yep.
It's a term I've used myself on more than one occasion. And
We're
it means more or less exactly what it sounds like. Quote unquote tolerance taken to its most extreme and destructive end. This is not the classic Republican tolerance you find in the Federalist Papers or in the writings of George Washington.
No, it's not.
Thomas Jefferson.
Nope.
It's a tolerance of anything and everything, which overpowers all reason and undermines all distinctions between right and wrong, good and evil, order and anarchy. It's an attitude summed up by the famous slogan of the French student radicals in 1968, "It is forbidden to forbid." That's what the phrase suicidal empathy is meant to describe. We open our borders and import millions of unvetted refugees because we can't bear to turn a single asylum seeker away.
Right.
We empty out our prisons because we just can't stomach the thought of keeping anyone behind bars. We let violent criminals off with a slap on the wrist because we see them as victims of socioeconomic conditions beyond their control. We turn a blind eye to rioters who loot, steal, and burn their way through our city streets because a riot is just the language of the unheard. But as I watch what's happening in the cities like Minneapolis, and I listen to the pundits and politicians on the left openly cheer on the agents of chaos, I'm increasingly convinced that suicidal empathy is not the right description of the disease that afflicts our body politic today.
What is it?
I think that phrase is actually far too generous. These radicals on the streets of Minneapolis and their comrades in cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, and Portland are not driven by empathy in any meaningful sense of the term. These are not bleeding heart humanitarians paralyzed by an overwhelming concern for the welfare of mankind.
No, they're not.
Quite the opposite. Their sphere of moral concern is vanishingly small, and it is reserved exclusively for those who can be used as instruments for their political goals.
Yep.
They don't care about what is just. They just care about what is useful. They wield the language of decency and compassion as a political weapon. If this was about empathy, they would have wept with the parents of Jocelyn Nungary.
They didn't.
The 12-year-old girl who was kidnapped, raped, and murdered by 2 illegal aliens in 2024.
No crying for any of those girls.
If this was about compassion, they would have mourned for the 5 young children of Rachel Morin, an American mother who was ambushed, raped, and murdered by an illegal alien on a hiking trail in Maryland in 2023.
Yeah, they don't. They just talk about their economic numbers in Springfield, or they talk about the vegetable pickers out there in Maria Salazar's domain. Or they cry about Alex Preddy and Renee Good and make them martyrs while just ignoring the death and mayhem that's happening all around our country elsewhere.
If this was about justice, their hearts would have broken for the family of Lake and Riley, a 22-year-old nursing student in Georgia who was brutally murdered while out for a jog nearly 2 years ago to this day, beaten and strangled to death by a Venezuelan illegal because she fought back when he tried to rape her. The 2 illegal aliens who murdered Jocelyn had been stopped at the border, processed, and then simply released into the interior just weeks before. The illegal alien who murdered Rachel was a fugitive with a warrant out for his arrest for the murder of a different woman back home in El Salvador. He had been deported 3 times in that year alone, only to waltz back in across our open border. The monster who murdered Laken had been illegally released into our country under the Biden administration's humanitarian parole program. He had been arrested in New York for endangering a child and released. Arrested again for shoplifting and released again without citation. Time and time again, the people in power in this country were given the chance to stop him, as if God himself was begging them to do something. Time and time again, they refused. And now, another American family will have to live the rest of their lives with the pain most of us cannot even begin to comprehend.
No, but Mike DeWine in Ohio is really happy that they've got some Haitians who are performing duties and employment for a lower rate, and he's celebrating that on CNN. And Maria Salazar says, no, just bring them in because we need nannies and other people to do jobs that we don't want to hire Americans to do. So we see what is happening now, but fortunately the administration is saying enough of this. No more endless catch and release. No more endless appeals where they can just keep making up new claims. I'm going to be tortured over here. I'm going to be attacked over here. My papusa business, whatever. The appeal process now coming to a screeching close in many ways, limiting the time that they have to file, making sure that the board can actually discretionarily, with discretion, dismiss the appeals and deny their attempt, forcing them to go over to the Article 3 courts, accelerating the process of the deportation. So we're happy to see that. Shout out to the DOJ for making these changes. We're going to keep our eye on this one and make sure the deportations continue. All right, now we got one final update on the day, and this is also a pretty fun one over here. The FBI is now summoning state election officials from all across the country to an unusual briefing in preparation for the midterms. Our friend Matt Berg got his hands on this as a scoop and shared the email that reads like this from the FBI to a bunch of folks about the midterms. Dear Chief Election Officials, to prepare for the 2026 midterm elections, your election partners at the FBI, DOJ, DHS, USPIS, and EAC would like to invite you to a call where we can discuss our preparations for the cycle, as well as updates and resources we can provide to you and your staff. Now, the call will be on Wednesday, February 23rd, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and will be for chief election officials. You may designate a proxy to attend in your place if you're available. On Wednesday, March 4th, we're going to have a similar call for members of EAC's Local Leadership Council. We look forward to speaking with you in support of the 2026 midterm elections. This is FBI election executive called Kelly M. Hardiman, and this has them freaked out, as you can see. He continues, he says, the FBI is organizing a mysterious call. People from all 50 states are going to discuss the plan for the midterm, according to the emails. Now, the purpose of the call is unclear. Not really. It's about preparation for the midterms, but it's raising concerns after Trump was out saying that we might want to nationalize the elections. Officials from every single state received an invitation for the call on February 25th to be joined by representatives from the FBI, DOJ, and others. The email was obtained via public records request, was sent on Tuesday by an official named Kelly Hardiman, who gave her title as the FBI election executive. Nice. Hardiman wrote that the FBI and other agencies would like to invite you. Looking forward to speaking with you. When he reached out to the FBI for comment, they said, oh, well, thank you for reaching out. The FBI has no comment. The email is raising anxiety for all the lefties at a moment when Trump is calling for the government to make sure we don't have rigged elections, because it is the responsibility of the federal government to execute the law, the executive branch rather. and dispatching the FBI to investigate over there in Georgia. Now, Nevada Secretary of State Cisco Aguilar, he said, I've never heard of a call like this being organized by the FBI. Yeah, right. After receiving the email, he wrote to Hardiman an hour later. He responded to her. He said, hey, is this real? Given what's occurred over the last 2 weeks, I'm concerned, says this Nevada Secretary of State. So we know what's going on over there. I was just like, what is this? It's the strangest thing in the world that the FBI is reaching out to us to try to coordinate election security. He said on a phone call, flipped. It's never happened in the past. And the casualness which they did this, it's just beyond crazy. They're just sowing this confusion and chaos to try to intimidate us. Yeah. While the DOJ does monitor elections during normal times, yeah, the email and the conference call are unusual. Former DOJ officials said, we don't care about former DOJ officials. That's why they're former, because they're bad. States are taking these threats extremely seriously. It's not a threat. You guys are rigging elections in multiple locations. So they say they're constantly preparing and strategizing for whatever Trump's team may attempt. Said it's unconstitutional for the president to do what he wants to do. We understand that he's trying to disrupt our midterms and more. So Nevada's going to fight back, and the FBI about to launch a phone call that's causing them to panic. While this is all happening, we're trying to cram through the SAVE Act. Hopefully we can get that done. Mike Lee and Ron Johnson were meeting with the president yesterday in the Oval Office. Mike Lee posted, he said, if the plan we discussed today works, and I believe it will, even though it won't be easy, we're going to make elections great again. Who's ready to join the mega movement? If you are, share it and say we're going to make elections great again. We're definitely a part of the mega movement. Big time. Mega and MAGA. So let's get it done. So that is a photo. And while this is continuing, we see that in Virginia, they are gerrymandering their state into oblivion. Look at this map here. Disgusting. Now, the preceding map in Virginia looks something like this, courtesy of Andrew Folsett. See, it here was in 2024, November 5th. This is the outcome in Virginia. See the red there? Well, and you can see the concoction of the districts and how it's all kind of connected together like puzzle pieces. But the new map redrew the lines. Now it's going to look like this. And this is what they do. They just will go in and they'll say, oh, these are all Democrat voters. So let's just draw this map and just like a tumor, just go in there. We'll put all the Republicans, just kind of siphon them off, corral them into one district, and we'll draw the other districts in a way that will consolidate the Democrat vote. So it's going to go from basically 10 to 1. So the Republicans will have basically one vote, when last time you can see what the numbers were. One rep because of the gerrymandering. And they signed that into law, or it's an amendment. She signed it today. Here's the image of this from the new governor out there, Spanberger. Listen to how giddy they are. Like, can't even take it. Almost cackling. You saw that right at the beginning. So stealing more seats. Stealing more seats. That's her words, not ours. She posted, Virginia GOP shared this. This was Abigail calling redistricting stealing votes. And then, of course, she just stole a bunch of seats from Republicans.
Because Republicans have to depend on redistricting and stealing votes and taking seats like they did in North Carolina in order to actually be able to win elections.
And then she gerrymanders her state 10 to 1. And of course, the state is not 10 to 1. Look at this. 47% of the people apparently were voting Republican. 47%, they'll have one seat. So like 10% of the representation there in Virginia. Yep. And she signed it. She knows it's stealing votes, but they did it anyways. And Raskin, once again, is in total panic. They're still melting down over the fact that the raid occurred in Fulton County, and we can now get our hands on fraudulent documents. Here was Raskin comparing and contrasting this with a woman who got married, who changed her name, who apparently now can't vote anymore.
What's wrong with the SAVE Act? What's wrong with it is that it might violate the 19th Amendment, which gives women the right to vote, because you've got to show that all of your different IDs match. So if you're a woman who's gotten married and you've changed your name to your husband's name, but so now your current name is different from your name at birth. Now you've got to go ahead and document that. You need an affidavit explaining why. And why would we go to all of these the troubles in order to keep people from voting when none of the states that are actually running the elections are telling us that there's any problem? What's wrong?
Because they don't want to tell you that there are problems because they keep sending Democrats in there fraudulently. So it's wild for him to think about, like, yeah, I'm sure there is probably a handful of women out there who may have to, oh, I forgot to change my name. Oh, okay. So here, fill out a provisional ballot and we'll validate it later. I'm sure that would happen. But he's like, well, that's going to happen a couple times. You'll still get to vote. You may just, it's provisional. And just like anybody else, you need to change your name and complete your documents if you're a responsible person. You can't just show up to the polls and not use your real name. That's the whole point. So everybody has to register. So just re-register. It's not that complicated. But he says, no, because of that, women are having their right to vote stripped away from them. And we can't make any changes to the integrity of our election because of the 19th Amendment. It's a cop-out, obviously. Now, in Fulton, Steve Sadow, the guy who represented Trump, said, here's a question. When will the media move to unseal Fulton County's motion for a return of seized property so that we, the public, is able to finally review the claimed legal basis that was underlying the seizure of that property? So far, all the media reporting is what partisan FC commissioners are saying about it. And so Steve knows what else is buried out there in Fannyland. And he did a great job, of course, representing the president in the RICO charges brought by Fannie. Now, Tom Emmer, the House Majority Whip, said essentially the Democrats' entire policy right now is one of the two following. One, stop enforcing immigration law. Why? So that we can have illegals here. And then two, block legislation requiring proof of citizenship and an ID to vote. Those two things kind of go together. Makes you wonder why they're working with both sides of that coin there. So that's him. Now, Catherine Herridge is a great journalist, and she was responding to some of the allegations against Tulsi Gabbard. She explains exclusively, credible sources tell me that elements of the intelligence community, federal law enforcement, and Congress have targeted Tulsi and the DIG, the Directors Initiative Group, because that group of Tulsi's revealed uncomfortable facts and findings on several matters entrenched. Members of these bureaucracies don't want to go out there. Catherine says, I understand the push has been to disband, dismantle, or diminish the DIG, Tulsi's group. As one example, she says, I confirm through multiple sources that the report and findings into directed energy attacks or anomalous health incidents were finalized and prepped weeks ago, but there is strong resistance to releasing any of it. So maybe some of the attacks are about this. Tulsi also committed to a new review of the Havana syndrome. And when it was launched, the stated goal was to rebuild trust with the intelligence community, investigate weaponization, root out deep-seated politicization, expose unauthorized disclosures of classified info, declassifying things that we need declassified. Now, in response to this, spokeswoman over there said, oh no, we're committed to rooting out this politicization and the weaponization of the intelligence community. We're reaching out to multiple agencies for comment, said Catherine, and I'm sure more will be revealed over there. But meanwhile, Mark Warner, the guy who sent did he send the letter to the CIA? Or maybe it was Ron Wyden, but they look exactly alike. He's out here saying that we are freaked that Trump is going to put pressure on us during the midterms with our illegal aliens and our lack of IDs.
With Tulsi Gabbard, and do you think that she is trying to interfere with the 2026 midterms?
I think, unfortunately, it appears there may be a coordinated effort to try to interfere in the 26 midterms. They may even start to interfere prior to in the primaries.
Wow, we have a bunch of election deniers out there all of a sudden. Are they insurrectionists? Are they going to be complaining about a rigged election? I thought that they said that that couldn't happen in our election system. But guess who else is out here today in opposition to the SAVE Act? This guy, Mike Pence. Sorry to remind you of him since we all forgot about him because he was so pathetic. Here's this report saying he does not want voter ID to happen.
Former Vice President Mike Pence comes out in opposition to the SAVE Act. Pence said Wednesday that he supports reforming elections, but it must happen at the state level, claiming the founders limited Congress's role in conducting elections. He said he opposed Democrat efforts to nationalize elections and said it's still wrong to try to do so. However, the Constitution's Article 1, Section 4 states Congress may, at any time, make laws regulating and altering election procedures. Additionally, the 15th, 19th, 24th, and 26th Amendments expand the power of Congress to regulate election laws.
Nice. We did a little summary of that yesterday ourselves. Now, Tim Burchett is also here. He says, our leaders always compromise when we have power while our opposition never does. Tim nails it as usual. We are gutless. Quiver Quantitative said, yep, they've reached a redistricting deal in Virginia. It's now 10-1. And when that shifts, we start to see some of the numbers shifting, right? The Democrats are cheaters. They tried to throw Trump off the ballot. They indicted him 4 times. They tried to bankrupt him. They made up accusations about Russia collusion and all the things. They tried to impeach him based on fake claims while he was the president. Then shot him in the head. So it's never ending. And then they gerrymander and steal basically 9 seats away from the Republicans in various states. It's ridiculous. Now, we got Jim Crow Schumer, who was also out in Congress, and Lindell TV was asking him, can you explain your statement about the Jim Crow laws? Is it a Jim Crow law to need an ID to drive? Is it a Jim Crow law to need an ID to go buy alcohol? Is that what's going on here?
Leader Schumer, you recently called the SAVE Act Jim Crow. Can you explain how it's Jim Crow to require an ID to vote in elections, to drive a car, to purchase alcohol, go to the DMV? Any comment on that? Leader Schumer, you said you're on the same page as. What do you think? Should we restore normal order in the Senate and actually go back to the standing filibuster?
You said that you're sending a proposal over there.
Leader Schumer, you
doesn't want to answer those questions because it's ridiculous. But we've got some good Congress people who are keeping the pressure up on this. Rep. Anna Paulina Luna says, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are now demanding that ICE agents ID themselves, but not voters. Saying, PSA, Democrats will get 0 concessions until the Save America Act is passed. This is non-negotiable, and we hope they drive it through.
Can you be convinced to vote for a rule if Mike Johnson doesn't put the Save America Act in the bill? I mean, we're talking about the DHS funding. It's going to expire a week tomorrow.
Yeah, so I actually talked about this. I do think that he'll get a rule vote. And I say that because right now we have seen that the perspective of Schumer, and I think that there was just a list of 10 demands that Schumer had made with Hakeem. One of them was that, you know, ICE agents must present ID. And I was like, well, isn't that ironic? You want ICE agents to present ID, but not voters, you know? And so it's going to have to come from the Republican conference. Also, too, at the same time, though, it's not just about ICE, DHS, Homeland, all of that. I mean, we have Coast Guard. I have a massive Coast Guard unit in my district. I have a couple, actually. That gets hemmed up. TSA gets hemmed up. But I also, too, understand that right now, I mean, who would have ever thought that, you know, I'd be serving during one of the slimmest majorities in U.S. history. And yet here we are. And so we'll get through it. But remember, the president wants this. A majority of the House wants this. All of the frontline members understand how important this is. I've been talking to them. There's a lot of them. And they understand that they need Republicans to show up in the midterms and that they better get it done. The Senate also understands this. And if you don't think President Trump was sending a message by calling all these senators out to their faces in the Oval Office, and now he's hitting them hard, I think that you have something else coming.
All right. And Americans want this too. By overwhelming numbers, it makes perfect sense that Americans vote in elections. IDs are required for everything. It's not difficult for rural Americans or certain ethnicities to go get IDs. Everybody's capable of it. It's part of self-governance. We got to make sure that our people are the ones governing us, not foreigners who are stealing our money and stealing elections. So the summons has now happened, and we'll see who shows up, and we'll see if there are lawsuits around this. It sounds like Nevada is really nervous, and I don't know what they're so nervous about. It's the FBI. They told us the FBI and the DOJ and all these institutions have institutional trust, and it's not appropriate to question any elections anywhere. So I don't know what they're so freaked out about. All we're trying to do is just do a little bit of prep work. So we'll keep our eye on this one, my friends. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right. What a lovely day it's been. Man, that went fast today. Golly, it's Friday. Man, what a lovely day it is. If you're just joining us, quick recap on what we talked about. We hit a bunch of stuff. We started with the $30 million couple fraud and Ilhan and her husband who got very rich. They went in 1 year. Just think about this. 1 year, 51 G's to $30 million. 1 year. 2024 disclosures, 51K. 2025 disclosures, 30 million. Nice. Nice if you can get it. So Comer sent legally, not fraudulently. That's illegal and criminal. Here, Comer sent a letter. We read through it, hit the highlights, saw that they now are having $60 billion assets under management. Rashida Tlaib has apparently, according to some group, connections to terrorists. Not a surprise there. We also then learned about this woman who had a 3-day hotel extravaganza with her entire team, billed the city about 45 grand for that. And then this woman, Kelly Loeffler, is reporting that in California, they also identified another $8.6 billion in fraud. This lady, amazing testimony, Kristen Robbins, talking about what really is going on in Minnesota. And Rep. Cheerfulness McCormick pleading not guilty. She's got a trial coming up in April, probably will get moved for her stealing money as well. Besant says, we're making some changes at the financial level, and Ted Cruz says nobody wants to talk about fraud, even when we invite them to Congress. Then we saw that immigration appellate rules are changing dramatically, and the Lib lawyers are very unhappy about that. This guy saying they just took a sledgehammer to due process by adjusting workflows ever so slightly to make sure that we can actually process the invasion, and their endless appeals. No longer will be endless appeals. Kristi Noem saying, don't release 30,000 criminal illegal aliens. Gavin, he probably will. We got Governor DeWine and other Republicans like Maria Salazar who don't want to address the illegal alien problem because she wants them to come in and pick her vegetables, and DeWine wants them to come in and build Springfield. Meanwhile, we had amazing testimony from Nick Shirley's counterpart in Congress explaining that they don't even walk through the snow at their 24-hour daycares, learning centers. And Eric Schmidt is explaining what this is. It's suicidal empathy and worse. It's about power. It's about votes. It's not about dead Americans or our country, our homeland, our culture, our nation. It's about exploitation and a kleptocracy. We're not doing it anymore. Then we saw the FBI is summoning a bunch of election officials for a phone call. Big battle over the SAVE Act. Virginia is rigging its states. Look at those differences right there. Rigging its districts very aggressively so that they can be like California, a one-party state forever. Spanberger, giddy, laughing, just realizing that as an ex-CIA agent, her mission is now being accomplished, even though she acknowledged that this gerrymandering is a theft of votes. Raskin was here. Gross. Sadow, good to see him. Emmer. And Tulsi, still under fire with guys like Mark Warner breathing down her neck. Mike Pence is very Mike Pence today. Doesn't want to do anything that's good for Trump or America. And Tim Burchett saying we're getting blown out because we're gutless on our side. Not everyone, but many are. Then Schumer and, of course, Luna in the house. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. It's a lovely Friday. Hopefully your week was absolutely outstanding. Thanks for joining us this week for our shows. Thanks for subscribing, liking this video, and thanks for becoming a member, because we do members only streams live on Saturday, and we'll love to see you tomorrow when we come back here. But I saw some very nice donos come in. Thank you for your support and supporting our work here and all of the things. We're grateful for you. And I do see some nice donos and some nice comments on locals. Oh, that's a Maduro pick too. Nice. Here it starts. Oh, banana. This is a Godfather clip, I think. Yeah. Hey, it's bananas and rice. That might be what it is. Is that? Oh, that's probably what it is. They're like the Somali Godfathers. Wow. Yeah. Although I don't think that they stole $8 billion. That's a big number. Ravicus. Hey, we need term limits. Grassley's 92. McConnell's on life support. That's true. Grassley's 92? Wild. That's pretty amazing. I wonder if his staff is taking advantage of this like the Biden staff did. The case for term limits, I think that's probably a good idea. You even like Feinstein, right, on the other side. And Joe, I think they're essentially just being leashed around by their staff, just pulled around, and they're not even in control of their faculties. Off-label podcast. Yeah, there was an attempt to end OMB director Russ Vought's life. He got an attack because someone thinks the country is going fascist. No, they'll shoot you if they think you're a fascist. They'll shoot you in the neck and kill you. That's their ideology. And then we're the bad people because we don't want to let invaders take over our country. I know. This old guy, I'd feel a lot better if the FBI was sending target letters out to election officials. Well, maybe that's coming next. Yeah, maybe this is just a little good cop routine. Hey, we just want to make sure things are secure. I don't know what you're so freaked out about. We're just here to help. Relax. Then they start to arm up. They overreact. And you catch them, not actually interfacing and complying with federal law. And you say, oh, you're committing crimes now by not, complying with these laws. And we're going to indict you now. So maybe that'll happen. This old guy. I hope Talib actually washes her keffiyeh. She wears it so constantly, I'm certain it's starting to smell. Probably. Although, yeah, it may not. It's probably just her. So, I mean, she can change it or wash it or whatever, but it's, you know how it is. Turbo, wow. The chat has a choice of a trans flag, a pirate flag, but no American flag. Rob, I don't think that's anything I control. I think that's in your emoji set. So what are you on? If you're on that's a local setting. That's not my setting. You're on locals. So did they not have the American flag in your Apple? There's no American flag emoji? I don't know. I don't have an iPhone, but we don't set those. I think that's just built into your system. So I don't know what you're using, Turbo, but we got to get that flag in there. Rick D said the experts said that if I hit 50 on the Dow Jones by the end of my term, I would have done a great job. But I hit 50,000 today, 3 years ahead of schedule. Remember that for the midterms because the Democrats will crash the economy. From the president. Thank you, Rick D. Yeah, we got some American flags over here in the YouTubes. I'm looking at them. Penguin. How about on locals? Let's see. What is this date? Here, let me see here. Let me look at this. I'm looking at locals right now. Is it a locals thing? Does locals not have an American flag in their emoji list? They may not. They have all the world flags. Where's the American flag? I don't know what you're seeing, but I think I see it. No, that's not it. That's close. Yeah, it's not easily accessible on this locals list. I'm looking at it right now. Well, hopefully it's in there. Thank you for the heads up on that. Hey, Slick, could the executive branch use AI to help them automatically dismiss some of those 200K immigration appeals? Call Elon Musk. Probably not officially. I'm sure that they could use that as a tool, as an organizational tool or a research tool. But if they use the AI to generate, motions or documents, that can come with some pretty big problems. And a lot of attorneys have gotten in trouble with that because the AI doesn't do a good job and it makes up cases. It hallucinates case law. But I would say, you could probably feed a bunch of data into it and say, help me prioritize these or whatever, right? You could use software to help you get organized. Lawyers do that all the time. We use Westlaw and LexisNexis and all these tools that are integrating AI stuff into them. So to some extent, yeah. But I don't think you could put Claudebot on it and just say, will you just dismiss all these 200,000 cases, just this automated AI agent? I don't think so. Rick D. Rob, here's an interesting question for you. A person on a stop who uses Attorney Shield has a lawyer on the phone. Attorney Shield, is that like a legal shield, one of those kind of things? The trooper orders the man to end the call. When he refuses, the trooper force resets the phone, disconnecting the video call. Thoughts? Well, is he on the phone with a lawyer or is he on the phone with a receptionist or something? That's a complicated hypothetical because it depends on a lot of things. It depends, is the trooper in fearing imminent a threat? Cops can order you to get out of the car and stuff like that. But if you have your lawyer on the phone and you're talking to your lawyer, generally the lawyer is going to want to talk to the cop. And if the cop orders you out and ends the call, then the lawyer is going to have a field day with that. So yeah, he can do it and order you out. But then the lawyer is going to say that he interfered with the attorney-client relationship. And the person was on the phone with the lawyer to get legal advice. Now, Attorney Shield, I think, is different, right? So I don't know much about those programs. I remember there was a Legal Shield at one point. And I don't know that you actually talk to lawyers. I think it's just kind of like a legal insurance plan kind of a thing. Like you pay, if you get a ticket, they'll help you dismiss it or something like that. But yeah, it's a good hypothetical. But as always, it depends. We need a lot more facts there. Turbo, the betrayal of heritage Americans is vile. It is vile. Yeah, nobody even cares about the heritage Americans. It's all just about the next new hot invasion group. Emperor Trajan, what's going on? You know whose name isn't in the Epstein files? One of the only guys, Maduro. Wow. What a good dude. Hey, Slicko, if an illegal is deported once and returns to the U.S., that should automatically trigger a paid vacation to CCOT for 1 year to El Salvador or to Gitmo. Yeah, and that would disincentivize a lot of the invaders. Absolutely. Deported and returned. We're not going to continue to entertain your indulgences about asylum or torture or whatever. Straight to jail. Emperor Trajan, what's up? From Andy No. Democrats in Washington state are proposing a bill that would introduce online voting. It's wild. The state already automatically registers people for mail-in voting and people who only have to self-identify as being a citizen to vote on the ballots. That's it. We saw that back during COVID. I think it was Wisconsin. I should probably double check that because I keep referencing it. But yeah, in Wisconsin, I think that they were allowing you to register to vote with no signature back during COVID because they thought you'll kill somebody if you get a piece of paper. Emperor, read those numbers on the blue states. As of 26, 9 states have all Democratic U.S. House delegations, right? Yeah, these numbers are insane. Like, we had a revolution over crap like this, a whole American revolution over this. Connecticut, 5 seats. They've got 40% of a GOP vote, but they have no representation in Congress. 40% of people in Connecticut, according to Grok, don't have a single rep. Massachusetts, they've got 9. Yeah, Democrats, right? 9. Delaware, you get the numbers. Many states have no Republican representation at all, even though a large portion of them are actual citizens. Thank you, Emperor. Says, foreigners are taking over your country and the Republicans don't do anything. The next party that comes after the collapse of the GOP is going to be something the Democrats aren't ready for. Yep. Peacefully and patriotically. That's right. Slick. Does anyone recall when Indiana representatives elected not to redistrict? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Yeah, we do. And many Republicans are just like, well, we don't want to be like the Democrats. We don't want to sink to their level because that would make us bad people. Yeah, thank you for that. What's going on? Slick in the house. Scott, what's up? Scott Hot Ved in the house. I support ICE. Me too. 4 months as a membo. Yeah, they're enforcing federal law. That's all. I don't know why other citizens who are Democrats are not supporting ICE. Apparently, they'd rather have criminal illegal aliens, which is really all they're focused on right now, permeating their streets. Emperor says, Mayor Mamdani says America should look to Islam and the Prophet Muhammad to support migration. Yeah, I'm sure he did. Thank you, Emperor. You're about to see a socialist majority House after November. Democrats now overwhelmingly identify as socialist. Shout out to Rich Barris over there, the People's Pundit. Great reporting. Spuds, both Raskin and Schumer are lying about women who change their names. Ideally in New York, when a woman gets married and changes her name on her license, her voting registration should change, but that doesn't always happen. So what happens is they fill out an affidavit with their ballot to update the change. Her vote eventually counts, but it can't be done normally through a scanner. Yeah, it's like a provisional. The next time she votes, the electronic poll book will reflect the change. Yeah. But that sounds like a lot of work. So we shouldn't have any rules around that, and we should just let illegal aliens vote without IDs. Yeah, that's better. Turbo. Democrats are like black hat hackers trying to take down the American server. Anything goes. Yeah, I read a great quote about this that it was an alcohol quote. It said something like, Republicans' relationship with power is like a non-alcoholic's relationship with alcohol. Okay. Republicans in power is like a non-alcoholic and their relationship with alcohol. You can kind of take it or leave it. The Democrats are like alcoholics. They just can't let it go. And as a recovered alcoholic, that really resonates with me. It's like they just obsessed with it. Meanwhile, the Republicans are like, no, I don't need another one. I don't need another drink. Democrats are like, I need a 30-pack right now. I need another handle, and I'll do anything to get it. I thought that was a pretty good analogy. And it's true. They act like that, too. They act like alcoholics, like insane people. Ray K, what's up? 48 months as a membo. Thank you for being here so long, Ray K. Oh, my goodness. That's a long time. I don't even know how many babies that is. Listening quietly from Queensland, Australia. Man, good to see you. Shout out to our friends in the land down under. It's always wild to think that it's beaming across the planet. We live in just a magical time. Hey, Mock Schnell, 20 new membo friends coming in. Thank you, Mock Schnell. Mike Moran, welcome. Search and Destroy. We got Scoop Dog, Vanilla Gorilla, James, Tina Marie, Sharon Sunshine. What's up? 7 messages ago. 7 memes ago. D-Ski, what's up? Benjamin Behringer, we got commentary in here. Sandra Lowe, we got Mary Richardson. What's up? Otto, Sophie B. Get the Din. Stammer Poops or something. MTQ. Susan Alley and the Roz Rodriguez all gifted membos in the house, courtesy of Mock Schnell. Yeah, it was a lawyer and not a hypothetical. It happened in Alabama. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be interference. I mean, I'm a defense attorney. I would be screaming about that. I would say I was on the phone to help facilitate giving my client advice, and you interrupted that and scream about that. Now, you're not entitled, like if you're under arrest, you're not entitled to talk to your lawyer for like 4 hours or something. So again, like how long was he on the phone call? Did the cop talk to the lawyer? Say, I'm taking your client into custody right now. Here's the cause. Lawyer talks to the client. Don't say anything, ends the call, under arrest. Where's she going to go? You know, kind of those things. I'm on my way. Don't answer any questions. She's got a lawyer, right? I'm invoking essentially on behalf of my client. You can't really do that like your client needs to invoke. You can't just call and say, I'm invoking for them. But you're putting them on notice that you're representing them. They should not be asking questions. You're on your way to the station, all the things. So and again, like, is there an exigency? Is there an urgency? I did not see that story, but it sounds like a good hypothetical. But, you know, prosecutors will say it was nothing and the defense will make it into everything. And that's the beauty of our system. Spuds, by the way, we had such a massive turnout in off-year election last November that about 80% of the people who came to vote volunteered to show their ID in order to get a ballot. And about 30% of them were registered Democrats. Obviously, where'd that go? Obviously, a lot of individuals of either party wants their vote stolen. In New York, you can't ask for a valid ID, but if the voter wants to use it, you have to accept it. The good news is that people are starting to wake up in some areas. Yeah, I just don't understand how you would want to be dispossessed of your vote by allowing illegal votes to water yours down. Hey, Rocky Water, man, good to see you. Man, Rob, this week's shows have been on fire. I know, I've been a little, little extra energized. A lot of truth being told out there this week on a lot of different fronts. No, so nice to hear. That's why I love you. Thanks for spreading the truth. And as always, for what you do and how you do it, brother. Man, Rocky, thank you, man. Good to see you again. I notice when you don't come around, and I notice. It's good to see you back. Thank you, Rocky. Thanks for the nice dono. Rick D. The Department of War is formally ending all professional military education, fellowships, and certificate programs with Harvard University. A lot of morons come out of Harvard. Like half our government came out of Harvard, and things are a disaster. Idiots up there. The Vitamin Dean Show. What's up? The Vitamin Dean Show in the house. Man, thank you for sending that in. The Vitamin Dean Show. Awesome. Good to see you, the Vitamin Dean. Thanks for being here and the dono. One old guy is here. Republicans are using turn the other cheek, but they are in always turning the wrong two cheeks. The cheeks they turn. Oh, I know where that one's going. Thank you, one old guy, for the nice dono. Is that Chuck Schumer right there? Looks like it. Chuck Schumer trying to lift a couple of 2-pounders right there. Get it, Chuck. Get it. We all should work out. Hey, Rob, great show, says this old guy. Have a great weekend. And thanks for putting up with all my snide comments. I simply can't help myself. I feel like I've been a little bit, aggressive with a lot of the comments too. But I'm unhappy with a lot of these issues. So at least we can do it together, this old guy. You're in good company. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the nice dono. Happy Friday to you. Gloria B, 34 months as a membo. And we have another month. 34 divided by 9. No idea. I need to start a spreadsheet for that. But thank you for being here. 34 months. Great stuff. Thank you, Gloria B. Very nice of you to be here. Couldn't do it without you. We got Orion Starman. To the Democrats, illegals are just a means to an end as blacks are slowly turning away. I think that's right. Yeah, and there's a natural tension, I think, between foreign invaders and other constituency groups, right? The Democrats treat everybody like trading cards, as we say. What's your suit? What's your color? What's your label? Are you a historic category of a person? And when they promise that to everybody, not everybody can be the same, right? Because it's like the victim Olympics. They're all trying to jump over each other. Oh no, we're bigger victims over here. Oh no, you're bigger victims over here. Oh no, you're bigger victims. And African Americans have a much bigger claim based on American history than somebody from Guatemala or Ecuador does. And feels like there's a natural tension there. And there should be, because that's ridiculous. We want American citizens to be cared for against foreign invaders. Orion, thank you for that. Londo, hey Rob. Good parents keep their grandchildren near their grandparents. Trust me. Your advice has been received and rejected. Thank you, Londo. Villaplot says, thank you, Rob and Alexis, for a cheerful, joyous week, and thank you for bringing this dysfunctional Watchers family together. From Villaplot. Thank you, Villaplot. It's going to be a great weekend, no doubt about it. Hopefully everyone's doing something fun for the Super Bowl and enjoying the time off. Rick D, the trooper actually took the phone and instructed the lawyer to tell her client to answer questions and cooperate, and ended the call when she wouldn't. Okay, so see, yeah, thank you for the facts. That's a big problem. So anything I would say that cop did after that would all be dismissed. And he'd probably be in trouble for that too. Like disciplined. So instructed the lawyer to tell her client to answer questions. Like, it's ridiculous. That's a total violation of the Fifth Amendment, and the lawyer is going to have a field day with that. So honestly, that lady got lucky. And I don't know the story, but that cop screwed up badly, and his whole case is probably going to be dismissed if that is factually true and provable. And I'm sure the lawyer is going to have a field day with this. So yeah, can't do that. But like, there are situations, right? So like, I've been on the phone with many people in jail, like people arrested, taken to jail. You don't get to talk to them forever, especially if it's a DUI case. Like, okay, your time is up. We need to go draw your blood sample. Lawyers do this. Lawyers try to delay things. Okay, I'm on the phone. I'm like, yeah, just keep talking. Tell me about whatever, that's all. Whatever. And you kind of want that BAC to go down a little bit. And then the cops, okay, you got 20 minutes. That's the policy. And the courts and the legal system kind of flesh this stuff out. So, okay, 20 minutes, talk to your lawyer, get your advice, but we're going to take you to go get your blood drawn. And of course, you can talk about, the benefits of agreeing to that, or not agreeing to have your blood drawn. Then they go get a warrant in 30 minutes anyways. But like, an attorney can't, run interference exactly in the middle of a criminal prosecution. So, but the point of instructing her to answer questions is completely ridiculous. Like, you don't have to answer crap. So stuff starts to cross the line. But yeah, an attorney can't just sit on the phone. Like, let's say she was pulled over for DUI. He's like, I'm talking to my client for 12 hours until her BAC plummets, and then you can talk to her. Cop's like, no. I've decided there's probable cause. You've talked to your lawyer. You've gotten your advice, but now I have to continue my job. And so there's a natural tension there, but sounds like that cop may have been a little bit overeager. And the consequence of that would be suppression of everything that comes after that. One old guy, the amount of time Republicans get the cheeks. One old guy, butt darts. One old guy. Islamist communists are a big threat to the country. Just look at the cities under their rule now. Mamdani is not the first one, just the most reported on. Yeah, he is an Islamist communist. That is true. And he's now running the biggest city in America. And a bunch of lefties voted for that. And meanwhile, Republicans are still like, well, but the Haitians are going to build Springfield for us and pick our vegetables. Jennifer O'Connell. What's up, Jennifer? I have a give, send, go if y'all could possibly help. Well, feel free to share it, Jennifer. I don't know if you can share any links in the chat on YouTube, which is where you are. But I mean, feel free to drop the name of the give, send, go, and if people want to go check it out, or they can look it up under your name, Jennifer O'Connell. Hopefully everything's well, and if people can support you for whatever the reason is, I hope they can. 14 months as a member. Thank you, Jennifer. We appreciate it. Hope everything's okay over there. It's kind of lacking in details, so hopefully everything's okay. But thanks for being here, Jennifer. We appreciate that. My friends, very nice donos. Thanks for the fun conversation and the great comments and your support. Let's see what's happening over on locals. We'll check X, and then we'll wrap it up on the day. Oh, what's going on? No one you know. Rob, I catch most of the streams, but rarely when they are live. I'm usually a day or two behind. If you have already covered this topic, my apologies. But I keep seeing headlines and news feeds that states the Supreme Court has ruled against Trump and will allow California to use the new maps. That is true. Yep, that is true. They didn't really give us a ruling on it. There was a lawsuit. The Republicans sued, went up to SCOTUS. SCOTUS said, we're not going to accept the case, and the current status quo can stand. So this could get them an additional 5 seats. Is that accurate? Yeah, as far as I'm aware. Is this the U.S. Supreme Court or California Supreme Court? And there was a similar claim in Texas. So in Texas, it is bad news. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts or insight on it? Yeah. So the Supreme Court, as far as we know, is just kind of creating a standard. So in Texas, they also did the same thing, right? Texas redistricted. Democrats sued in Texas. They said, this is racist. We read through that lawsuit here. It was maybe a couple months ago. Republicans appealed, and we got, I think, a reversal from the Court of Appeals. Then the Democrats took it up to SCOTUS. I think this, if I'm remembering it correctly, it was a while ago, rejected it. Okay, so Texas's redistricting stood. The reverse of that happened in California. They then gerrymander. Republicans sue them. It goes up to SCOTUS. Just like in Texas, SCOTUS kicks it back out. Says, we're not going to get into this at the moment. So is there any recourse? Not really. No, I mean, probably not unless the Supreme Court. The problem with the analysis is that we don't really know what the Supreme Court's rationale was. There's always election matters that are coming up. Other people are talking about Voting Rights Act challenges and other things. So the Supreme Court might be kicking those 2 cases out of the docket so that they can resolve them all via another issue. So the Supreme Court, yeah, I mean, they could, we're waiting on decisions on a bunch of things, and there will be more lawsuits, more election litigation coming up. They may not have just liked the form of the complaints, which is basically that everyone's racist, really. Like, they may not have liked those claims. But yeah, it's, as far as the House of Representatives go, it's not good news. Yeah, the Republicans are largely getting blown out. Virginia just ripped off another, I think, 5 seats. So, and the Republicans don't play, right? They're not like alcoholics like the Democrats are. They're just like, no, we don't really need redistricting. Democrats are like, I need it. Like, pump it right into my veins. They're like meth addicts. More power, more illegals. Constantly. So thank you, no one you know. Yeah, it is concerning. And then other states have no Republicans representing them when there's a big Republican constituency, and they call that democracy. Same people lecture us about a democratic country. The Veil. Here's a question. Has Pam Bondi put anyone in jail either last year or this year for being in contempt of Congress? No, but I don't know that anybody's been voted to be in contempt of Congress. Yeah, I don't recall the previous admin wasting time on that. I'm waiting on the Comey situation. So are we, The Veil. That's for sure. But no, I don't think, like the Clintons, I think were the first ones who were going to be held in contempt, and they caved at the last minute. So you need Congress to vote them into contempt. And they did that very quickly with Bannon and Navarro. Didn't waste any time. Sent that right over to Merrick Garland. Boom, they're indicted. Navarro gets put in leg shackles on a tarmac at an airport. Thank you, Jennifer, for that link, or for the dono as well. So, yeah, midterms are going to be tense, man. Going to be tense. We're here for it. And let's see what else we got cooking over here. On X, let's see who's in the house. Let me swap that out. Boom. We got here Neuro D. What's up, Neuro D? Great to see you. We appreciate you sharing our link. He says, hey, we have members-only streams here in the morning on Locals and on YouTube. And of course, you can follow us on Substack as well. All the links are in the description wherever you're watching this. We do have the best meme smiths and membos on the whole galaxy. And we're grateful for everybody who joins and has fun with us in the mornings and on Saturdays. Thank you, Neuro D, for sharing the link. Deb Keeps Words Real are here. What's up, Deb? Deb says, this has to go back to the courts. What must be done to bring the seat thieves back to court? Which seat thieves? Oh, Virginia? There'll probably be a lawsuit about that. So they'll be in court. We're going to be in court on a lot of these redistricting matters for the rest of the year, I would imagine. The Cookie Queen. Avoid a government shutdown with bipartisan breakthrough. Pass the SAVE Act. Have Schumer rally Senate votes in exchange for citizenship pathways. Oh, I don't like the sound of that. Only after deporting all of the people. Announce this as secure, fair way forward and watch overwhelming support surge from both parties. Yeah, no, if there's a pathway to citizenship, that's like crack cocaine for Hunter Biden. They can't drop it. We don't want any citizen. I mean, I respect your position on it, honestly, but we tried the citizenship thing with Reagan back in the 1980s. It was a disaster. That was supposed to be the final solution, to not use a very appropriate phrase for that. But that was supposed to be the end game. Solve everything once and for all. Comprehensive immigration reform. Didn't work at all. We got invaded every single year after that. Look up Strawman and Sestive KV Trust Fund. It's linked to birth certificates. And Deb says Democrats leaning people are brainwashed. Yeah. Michael Savage. Liberalism is a mental disorder. TDS probably should be in the DSM-5. Don't think it is there yet, though. Mock Schnell, what's up? Rob, the Supreme Court has already heard oral arguments about Louisiana, so I'm sure the California and Texas and Maryland items will be addressed around June's release. There you go. See, I didn't even connect that, but exactly right. So Louisiana is also knocking on the door of the Supreme Court. They heard oral arguments. So exactly. So then California's rejection, Texas's rejection may be rectified once they decide Louisiana. And I don't think we covered that one here. Yeah. So a separate, mechanism by which they can solve some of these election issues. Mock Schnell, man, thank you for that one. Very good detail. And my friends, it's been beautiful. Happy Friday. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for subscribing and all the things. If you haven't already done that yet. This is an interesting little comic. I'm not sure who these people are, but this feels like a lot of what's going on. State Senator Louise Lucas and Speaker Don Scott. You think they're controlling Spanberger? Like House Congress people, you think are moving around the governor? That's pretty interesting. I don't know who those people are, but somebody does, and they took the time to make that graphic. And a lot of our elected leaders are puppets, so that sounds perfectly accurate. Indeed. Yeah, good to see you. Christina. Hey, Christina's dropping some Locals flags. There we go. Right there. Locals flags. Love to see it. John's sharing some cars. Jennifer's in the house. I have a new computer. Rob has a new format. On Locals, does a click, a little heart, give a thumbs up? Yeah, I think you can do a thumbs up on Locals right over here. Right there. Boom. There we go. Shout out. All right, cool. Yeah, okay, so my friends, good to see you, Boopsy. We've got Christine, Londo in the house. John's in the house. What a lovely day. All right, so my friends, it's been a beautiful afternoon. Happy Friday. Hopefully your weekend is amazing. You're doing something fun, relaxing, rejuvenating, enjoying the big game, getting outside, spending time with friends and family, and doing all the things that help us rejuvenate and return, because we're coming back on Monday and we're excited to do that. But members will also be here tomorrow for our Saturday stream. 11 a.m. Eastern time, 9 a.m. Arizona, 8 a.m. California time. Come check us out, locals, watchingthewatchers.locals.com or on YouTube. And we'd love to have you join us. It's going to be a great time. I'm sure there'll be a lot more to talk about in the morning, and we'll be back to do that again. But if we don't see you tomorrow, we are coming back on Monday, and it's going to be another great stream, no doubt about that. Before we close it out on the day, big thank yous to our mods and meme smiths. Shout out to Muffin Rando. Thank you, Muffin. Donuts here. We got John in the house, Carrie B, K Bean in the house, Neuro D, Janek, Dog Digger, our friend Geegum Geegum, Elliot, and just Rhonda. Keeping things nice and orderly around here. But my friends, it's been a beautiful week. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting our work in the show and all the things. Hopefully your weekend is amazing. And until we're back here on Monday, I hope you're out there getting after it, because when we come back on Monday, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Happy weekend. We'll see you right back here on Monday. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. We brought the heat with every chatting line. Together we exposed corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but